What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Week 3 feature of the Philly Sports Report's Eagles pregame show. Um, Use code Philly Sports Report on SeatGeek for $20 off your first purchase of $50 or more. Today, the Eagles are taking on the Washington Commanders in DC, and they're coming off a dominant win from the Vikings last week. Darius Slay, big game. Jalen Hurts, big game. I'm Hunter Simpson. You're Sam Hine, whatever.
Hi.
Same Hine. Yeah, let's jump into Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts.
Well,
That
I want to start off by saying that I'm not wearing a Carson Wentz jersey. Don't worry, it's AJ Brown. I will not be supporting Carson today. But it's kind of wild that we're getting this matchup. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when Jalen was drafted, if you told me or any Eagles fan really that they'd be playing each other in a division matchup, I think people would call you crazy. But I think the Eagles have the advantage at quarterback today. I mean, Carson has really kind of gone downhill, and the way Jalen's been playing so far this year. I mean, Carson is off to a hot start. He has 650 passing yards this year. He's tied for first in touchdown throws, but, the stats don't always tell the story.
and at the same time, he has 3 interceptions.
Yeah, exactly. And, he has a fumble in the end zone. He has a safety taken. He's still making those dumb plays that he was making in 2020 that kind of led to him being out of here. So, just because he has the stats doesn't mean that, he's playing as well as Jalen's played to begin the year.
Definitely, I think most of his stats have come in good, the first half, and have been meaningful stats. Whereas Carson Wentz, against the Lions, they're already down 22-0. So the comeback didn't really mean much in that second half. And Jalen Hurts hasn't really been playing all that much in the second half because they've gotten off the big lead. So, I mean, I think we definitely have the upper hand with Jalen Hurts over Carson Wentz. And I think Hurts is in for a big game today. I think easily the worst team that they've played so far. And defensively, I can't think of how they're going to stop Smith, Brown, and Goddard, and while keeping up with the run game. So I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a lot of options to throw to, have a lot of options to run. And, I think they're going to keep running that RPO with Smith, Goddard, and then Hurts rolling out. So.
Yeah, and Carson used to be really athletic before he tore his ACL, broke his back, hurt his ankles, all that kind of stuff. And, Jalen's got the advantage today there also. Carson was never as good as Jalen on the ground, but he used to be really athletic, but now he can't really move around the pocket. His injuries have really hurt him.
Yeah, overall, offensively, I think, we should kill them in every aspect. I know it's the Eagles, and you can't really be too overconfident with them going into any given matchup, but I think we just overpower them in everything. And defensively, we're a bit more inconsistent, so I'm more worried about our defense than our offense. Mm-hmm. I think we'll put points up on the board, but I'm more worried about us letting points up and having to use Jalen Hurts to save us like he did in the Lions game.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier about how the Eagles have been getting out to big leads is a big thing because there's going to be a lot of our fans down there. So I think if we go down there and get out to a big lead again, I think the game's basically going to be over in the first half. Washington does have a lot of weapons, Dotson, McLaurin. But if we get out to a big lead and start off hot, then, I think the defense kind of rides off the offense too. I think last week was a big thing that we went down and scored on our first drive, kind of showed the defense all right, now it's your time. Go stop them. And then they went out and they completely dominated last game. So I think that they might, run kind of the same kind of defense that they ran last week because, you saw them when they got tons of pressure on Cousins. He was just throwing the ball up to Slay, and Slay followed around. Yeah, Slay followed around Jefferson last week. So I could see them doing that kind of same thing with Terry this week.
Touching on the fans in the stadium, I really hope they vote for a bad mascot.
The superhero makes no sense. Why they're the Washington Commanders? Why do they have a superhero as their mascot?
I don't know. Honestly, I think they should have just stuck with the football team.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad name, but yeah, if they get the superhero, that'd be hilarious.
Yeah. So you touched on it with run the same type of defense that they did against Kirk Cousins. I think Wentz is a little bit more mobile than Kirk Cousins is. Mm-hmm. Even after the injury, but he last week, I mean, he was running for his life. And with the kind of pressure that our defensive line can bring, he's going to be running for his life again. And I think he's just going to be susceptible to making the same kind of mistakes that Cousins did. And McLaurin is going to be the only one that like he can really target. And if Slate locks him down like he locked Jefferson down, there's going to be nothing they can do.
And we've seen from this year, last year, and when he was with the Eagles, Wentz has a tendency to really hold on to the ball. He doesn't throw the ball away. He doesn't hit his check down running back. And if we hit him, he's prone to fumbles. He showed that, I think it was last week, he had a fumble in the end zone. So he's really shown that, he'll still fumble. He still does the stupid things. I remember there's one play that always sticks in my head against the Cowboys. He's just sitting there. It was when he was with the Eagles 2020. He's just sitting there and sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And it's like 8 seconds later, he finally gets sacked. It's like, just throw the ball away. And he still does that kind of stuff. So if we get pressure and, even if we don't get pressure with the front four originally, like, they're going to get there eventually.
Yeah, and I mean, like, Kirk Cousins, at least he got the ball off quickly. He may have thrown interceptions, but he got the ball out of there. It wasn't like he was getting sacked every play. But I think that's going to be a big thing. Turnovers are going to be big in this game. I'm still not, like, completely sold that Jalen is not going to make, some mistakes. But I'm hopeful that he won't. And if he doesn't, it's just going to be a breeze in this game. Look on it next week. But I'm very interested to see how our defense plays, like whether last game was a fluke defensively or we're legit. Because the first game we did not look good, but I think last week showed us because we had everybody getting involved. We had multiple players getting interceptions. James Bradbury getting the deflection on the first drive. I'm really excited to see our defense take on Carson Wentz because they definitely got some anger to let out on him.
Yeah, and one of the biggest things with the defense that was bad the first week was like missed tackles. DeAndre Swift would just miss tackle, 50-yard run. And I think that they did a really good job last week of getting Dalvin Cook at the line or near the line. He didn't really do much of anything last game. So it kind of had to force Minnesota to throw the ball a little more. So I think if we can do the same thing, tackle really well, stop the run, then it'll force Carson to throw, and then the more Carson has to throw, the more he's prone to making mistakes.
And their run game has not been nearly as good as Detroit's, so I'm not very worried. But you let up a big run, it can change the game, and it happened a couple of times with the Lions game. That's why they were still in the game. But I do think we have a much better chance of stopping Gibson than we do Swift. So.
And the Lions O-line is really good. The Washington line is not very good at all. So
not at all.
That's also a big advantage.
And like Hudson, he really didn't do anything in the first week against us, and then he had 3 sacks in the first week or the first half against them last week. So that's really a tell as to the differences. So as far as like the keys to the games go, like what would your like top 3 be?
So for keys to the game, I would say kind of what we were talking about is get pressure on Wentz. I think that last week they did a really good job of picking their spots with blitzes because, like you said, Cousins was getting the ball out really fast. The first Slay interception was kind of overlooked, but that play was made by Hargrave because he beat his man and got in there really fast. Kirk just threw it really fast and wasn't really looking. So I think that if we get pressure with the front four, and also I think that last week, like I said, we did a really good job timing the blitzes. We sent CJ Gardner-Johnson in. Sometimes you send Maddox in, send the linebackers in. If you pick your spots, third downs and stuff like that, I think that we're just going to dominate on defense and create a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, I think a more underrated aspect, underrated but not being talked about enough is Devontae Smith. Because in the first week, Hurts was really just passing to A.J. Brown. And Devontae Smith, he had 4 targets, just didn't catch a pass. And it was really good to see last week him actually get targets and catch them and bring them upfield for yards after catch. And I think that's going to play a big part. If he can play like he did last week, it's just going to take the pressure off of A.J. Brown and Hurts to make that connection as good as it was in the first week. And I think Goddard's been really good to start the season. Perfect, for what we need out of a tight end. And I think he's transitioning in the starting role really well. And then, like I said earlier, turnovers. I think we just need to force turnovers and keep the ball ourselves. I don't want Jalen Hurts checking up a bad pass like he would in the past. Um, I'm just hoping that he's smart, smart, stays consistent, and if he can keep up the completion percentage like it was last week, we will have a very good quarterback on our hands.
Yeah, like you were saying, another key I had was for just basically Jalen to stay hot. Last week or last year, I should say, we saw that he would have a good game and then a bad game, a good game, bad game, good game, good game, bad game, bad game. The one that stands out to me the most is against the Saints. He played really well. It's probably his best game of the season. And then the next week against the Giants, he was horrendous. So I think that if he can stay hot, keep stringing these good games together, I think that he has really improved from last season. You see, you go back and watch like highlights and stuff like that. You can see his ball placement has been insane. Last week, one of the biggest things that people were talking about after the Lions game was he wasn't really getting through his reads, like you were kind of saying, how he was kind of just looking at AJ and running. And last week he was finding Quez. I mean, that Quez throw, I can't imagine he was the first. If you watch his eyes, he wasn't the first read. He looked over to the right, boom, Quez is wide open, he hit him. I don't think that last year he really does that. You saw that against Tampa Bay. He missed Quez on basically the exact same kind of play. He was running wide open down the field. So I think that Jalen just needs to really, keep stringing these good games together. And, I mean, if he does, he's going to be in the MVP race all season. He's been playing incredible. And, if he strings another good game, we're going to dominate them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the divisional matchup is going to be a test for him because he has not been great in divisional games in the past. And last year, yes, he came out with like an impressive comeback win against Washington, whatever, but he was not good in the first half. And
He also
I
got
mean,
saved in that game too by McLeod making the interception in the end zone to end the
interception,
game. I
yeah,
was actually at that game, and it wasn't a great feeling throughout the game, like you're saying. And McLeod really saved us at the end.
yeah. I mean, like, and you can give whatever credit you want for Jalen or bringing us back in that game, but the fact that they were in that position in the first place when Washington was not a good team last year, it just shouldn't have happened. And we really need to capitalize on beating up on bad teams, which is something we weren't able to do in the past. Like, even though we won games, we didn't like dominate like we should have, like except for like the Lions game, but
Mm-hmm.
they were terrible last year. And I really like I wish we did have a stronger schedule because my main concern for Jalen Hurts is the playoffs. And I'm glad that he's looking more confident. It doesn't look like he has any like he looks like he's just playing ball. Doesn't look like he has pressure on him. And if he can play like that in the playoffs, I think we'll be fine. But I just hope the pressure doesn't get to him like it did last year. It's kind of obvious that it did. And a lot of the coaches are saying he's more confident. And it looks so far, but we haven't seen him play anybody really meaningful. Like
Yeah, I
like
agree. I mean, I was very and still am very skeptical of Jalen. I mean, 2 games into the season, he's looked great, but, how's he going to look in week 10, 11, 12? And last year, one of the biggest things that, like you were saying with the playoffs, another thing that kind of gets overlooked, I think, is that he was struggling with an ankle injury last year in the playoffs. And I think it, obviously forced him to stay in the pocket more and throw more. And then that's when he started struggling more, because he would rely on his legs, rely on the running game. And I mean, let's be honest, to win games last year, they had to take the ball out of his hands. They started running the ball and boom, they started winning. So I think you're right to worry about that. I also worry about that. But I think if he keeps playing, we do have a couple Tennessee looks terrible now, but Green Bay, only a few on the schedule. But I think last week was a big confidence for me because I do think the
definitely.
Vikings are better than they looked last week. They came out against
Yeah.
Green
I think
Bay.
it was a prime time Kirk.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I mean, the way that the NFC North looks, it might be a little tougher now that the Lions are actually like kind of decent. It looks
Yeah.
like, but I think that was a decent team. But I just think the biggest thing with him is consistency. Just like be consistent. Don't have these games where you throw for 100 yards and no touchdowns and stuff like that. So yeah, I just think
But
consistency.
the other thing that worries me is the amount of praise that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles have gotten. Like after
Hmm.
last week's win, like I remember like in the Wentz era when it wasn't the year that it was in 2017, but I think it was 2019 when he like led us to the playoffs when he had nobody on our team. and everybody was like, nobody was talking about Carson Wentz. And
Yeah.
I love that because I love like the underdog mentality and I love being underlooked. And then Carson Wentz going and prove them all wrong. And Jalen Hurts has done that, but now he's gotten so much praise. And the Eagles are like, oh, they're Super Bowl contenders now. They're the best team in the NFC. And I'm like, I agree, but I don't want everybody else because I feel like now if we fail, we're just gonna be looked at like the laughing stock of the East.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, like, so early to say that too, I mean, we played the Lions, and who knows what the Vikings are gonna be. I think that they're actually, like, a decent team, but it could turn out that they're not that good. So, it is a little worrisome that people are getting ahead of themselves. I was listening to the radio the other day, and somebody was like, "Oh, where's the Super Bowl this year? I need to get my tickets," and stuff like that. It's like, "All right, well, we'll see. It is early for everybody to be getting on the hype train, but I also think one of the best things about Jalen is like his off the field presence. I don't think that he's going to get too high, get too low. So I'm actually, a little less worried about him with, all the hype because I just don't think he pays attention to it. Coming from Bama and Oklahoma and stuff like that, like I think that they just raised them right over there. So I am worried about it, but I feel a little more confident with Jalen as the quarterback than I would if
Yeah.
we had somebody else.
Like his post game speeches in the locker rooms were like amazing. And
Yeah,
I love the mentality that, we kicked ass, but then at the same time, we still had a lot left that we could have done.
yeah,
And they should have scored more points on the Vikings. They should have not let the Lions come within 3. And they know that. And I really hope they end up playing to the standard this season because I think the sky's the limit. And the other thing with Jalen Hurts is just touching on like what you were saying, that he's really down to earth. Like I think a lot of people were worried about the contract situation, but for me, if he doesn't play to the level that a max contract per player would need to, I don't think he's going to be looking for one.
mhm.
He's not that kind of player, and he's not that kind of person. And I think he likes to earn what he gets rather than just have it handed it to him because he has a good team around him. So
Yeah, and back to what you said, the first thing speech in the locker room, he was like, "Yeah, we left a lot of meat on the bone. We left a lot of money on the table." So I think that's a good mentality to have because they're right. Like, he's right, and I think that what I was saying before is he's really down to earth. I think that's good because some teams they come out, they dominate a team that just blew out the Vikings Monday night, and they're gonna be super high. And the Eagles were super high, but they know that they have work to do. They know that they're not perfect yet. So I think that's really good. And then with the contract thing, it's quarterbacks nowadays make a ton of money, and I think that I hope that Jalen wouldn't complete,
yeah,
but also there's I think one of the biggest things that Jalen is he's about team, like you said, and I think that he realizes that look, we have AJ Brown, he's making a lot of money. We have Devontae Smith, he's gonna be making a lot of money. I could definitely see him being like James Harden did this season and
yeah,
Tom Brady's done, where he's not going to go and Lamar Jackson's out there asking for $500 million or whatever the hell he wants, and they have no wide receivers, right? So I do think that Jalen might, go to them and be like, obviously I want my money, but you know, Devontae needs to be happy. We got Goddard. We're going to need to add younger players to this defense eventually. CJ Gardner Johnson, if he keeps going, he's going to have to get paid. Jordan Davis, if he turns out to be the player we want, he's going to have to get paid. So, that's how you win. That's how you win consistently. When quarterbacks on a rookie, the best contract in all of the NFL is, or all of sports, I should say, is a great quarterback on a rookie contract. And we have the better one because he's on a second round contract. So he's only making like $1 million. So you can, load the team up. And, I just hope that he sees that and, wants to continue building this team and get his money too. But, hopefully not run us dry. If he keeps playing the way he is, obviously we're not going to give him
yeah.
some huge contract that he turns into last year.
And I mean, I think he's made it pretty clear that he loves playing in Philly. So
Hmm.
I think he would sacrifice to stay here. And just the chemistry that we've seen with the team so far, like the TikToks, the videos, everything like they even see that as soon as he got to Philly, he was in a TikTok joking around with the team. Like that type of culture, I think a lot of athletes that have played for the Eagles and have played in Philly just like that type of culture when they're there. And people talk about as fans or whatever, but we're hard when we need to be, but we love you when
Hmm.
you're good. So we just want to see y'all succeed. And I really hope that Jalen Hurts plays to the level of a max contract, because if he can, and we have him on this rookie deal this year, I mean, that'd be ideal. But
And we'd
we'll
have him
see.
on a rookie deal next year too, because he's only going in his third year. So if any new contract wouldn't even kick in, so we do really well this year, there's going to be all these players trying to come here, load up, and like you said about him wanting to be here, his two best friends are on the team. His 1 and 2 wide receivers were his best friend in college and one of his other and his best friend in life. So I
Yeah.
think the Eagles have done a good job of building around him and putting the pieces he needs. I mean, this is kind of off topic, but it goes back to building around Jalen. You see these guys make these leaps when they get that number one wide receiver. Josh Allen, he was good. He was struggling, inaccurate. Get Stephon Diggs. Oh my God, he's the best quarterback in the league. Some people think he's the best quarterback in the league. Mahomes, when he was developing, he had, Kelsey and Hill and, Tua. They got Tyreek and, Jalen Waddle's obviously a stud. And Kyler Murray, they got Devontae Adams for. So I just think that it's huge that we got AJ Brown for his development, and I mean it's just even better that it's his best friend. And if they can, AJ Brown's still so young, and Devontae's so young, and Goddard's young, and Sanders is relatively young, and if we want to re-sign him, we just have so many good young pieces. It's really amazing tying it all back to Carson, how far this team has come since he left. Like you were talking about.
Year, 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're talking about when he took them to the playoffs in 2019. The wide receivers were Deontay Burnett and I don't even remember, Travis Fulgham, who's not none of these dudes are even in the league anymore. And the way that Howie's been able to turn that into AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, even Quez, 6th round pick or 5th round pick, wherever he was. They've really done an amazing job. And it always makes you wonder, okay, what if Carson had AJ, and what if Carson had Devontae, and what if Carson had this and that? But
but also, what if we never drafted Jalen Hurts? What would we have done? And I mean, that last year of Carson Wentz, I wanted to root for him so badly, because I was always a Wentz supporter, but then he just gave too many reasons to not root for him anymore.
I was out when I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting in my house, and I was looking on Twitter before the game, and it was before Jalen's first start. And Adam Schefter put out a tweet, and it was Carson Wentz expected to ask for trade after the season. I was like, I'm done. If you're not gonna, Aaron, he's not the player that Aaron Rodgers is, but Aaron Rodgers, you draft Jordan Love, and he's out there, he's winning MVPs. He's saying to them, F you, Jordan Love's never seen the field. And Carson's just not that guy. And I mean, it's almost better that we drafted Jalen, because we were able to find that out. If we were stuck with Wentz, I mean, I can't imagine the amount of money he was making, and we wouldn't have been able to, trade for AJ Brown. We wouldn't be able to, do all this stuff. And I mean, the trade for Wentz got us AJ Brown, which is just insane.
Wild. Yeah, I mean, I've told people that I've been a Hurts supporter since day one, just because he was my favorite quarterback to watch that year that he was drafted. And I was like, all right, cool. We got Jalen Hurts. I don't know why we drafted him, but I mean, I like him. He's a solid backup. But that year, I mean, I'm excited for us to play the Saints again, because he's killed the Saints in his career.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see him improved and playing the Saints. But I mean, the little sparks we've seen last year, and then the few starts that he saw 2 years ago, I mean, I was excited, but then I was also nervous, because what happens when we don't have a franchise quarterback and we have to draft somebody and wait even longer, or have to trade for somebody and we don't have enough money for somebody? I'm really hoping Jalen Hurts works out for us. I think he's one of the best leaders in football, and he's still so young. It's for him to have that wisdom at his age is crazy. And I'm excited to watch him play today, because I want to see him.
So. I mean, the Washington defense, one of their starting cornerbacks is out, so that'll be huge. They've allowed the most 40-yard plays of any defense in the NFL this year, so I just expect them to air it out. I mean, AJ, I hope AJ gets his first touchdown today. That'd be great.
I need more passing touchdowns from him, man.
I know that. Well, that's it's going to be hard to beat Josh Allen for MVP, but I mean, if he keeps playing the way he is, that's going to be one of the things that stops him. But Yeah. So why don't before we wrap it up, get to game predictions?
I don't know. I'm torn because I think it's either going to be like close or it's just going to be a complete blowout.
Mhm.
Um, I'm gonna say like 38-10. I think we're just
Wow.
we're
Okay.
gonna beat them up.
So I think that I think Carson's gonna obviously, be fired up. I think they're gonna score, first drive, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh my God, Carson revenge game!" Blah 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 blah. But I just think we're the better team. Their Washington's offensive line blows. Their defense is like the worst defense in the NFL. I think that Carson's going to try to pressure too much. I think that we're going to have. I'm predicting 2 turnovers today, and final score I'm going 31-20 Eagles. I like you said earlier, Wentz is the king of rack up yards and touchdowns while you're getting
That
crushed.
is
So
true.
I expect that again today, and I just think we're gonna I think that Jalen's gonna want to come out and prove that, like, hey, you guys made the right decision. I'm
Definitely.
your quarterback now, and you know just want to dominate him because they didn't also have the best relationship when they were here. You know
Mm,
they were running those stupid 2 quarterback plays where Carson would go out to wide receiver and Jalen would run. It was the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen. And, there's been reports and rumors that, Carson was not helping him out in the locker room and not giving him pointers and all this stuff. And I think, Jalen's never going to say anything publicly bad about the guy, but I think, internally he's just going to want to go out there and show that, he's arrived and, you know, dominate.
And I think like as a person, I have nothing against Carson Wentz. I think he's a great dude. The AO1 Foundation. I wish nothing but the best for him as a person, but as a
Yeah.
player, I really hope we kill him today.
100%, 100%. He seems like a really nice guy. I mean, the whole teammate thing is, it is what it is. But he does have all those foundations, and he's a restaurant still here in Cherry Hill area, and he seems like a good guy. But I mean, you request a trade out of Philly, you're gonna, you're gonna get what you expect.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna wrap up our Week 3 Eagles pregame show. It's been Hunter Simpson, Sam Hine, um, and don't forget to use code Philly Sports Report on SeatGeek for $20 off your first purchase of $50 or more. Go Birds! Hope everybody has a great time watching this game. I hope we kill Carson Wentz. Yeah, thank you for watching.
Go Birds.